Hey everybody, Clay Archer, CEO DPC Technology. And today I've got a really cool one. Today I'm going to cover the long-awaited AI Multisensor 4. So if you're like me, you've been patiently awaiting this new camera, and today we're going to get it unboxed. We're going to put it on a light pole in the parking lot. We're going to get it adopted, and we're going to test it out. We're going to see what it looks like during the daytime, during the nighttime, and compare it to some other cameras and see if it might be right for you. Let me first start off by saying, like other multi-camera or 360 cameras, this may be a little misunderstood, and there may be some confusion about what this camera is and how it works. So we're going to try and dispel some of the myths about what it is and what it isn't, and we'll also talk about some of the constraints of all multi-sensor cameras. So without any further rambling, let's jump right into the unboxing. So first off, the camera itself and the wall mount are sold separately. And as always, it's the typical beautiful Unifi packaging. It comes really well protected. There's actually a plastic cover on it, and then your typical cellophane wrapping cover on it. The first impression is the device is really sturdy. It reminds me more of the AI PTZ cameras. This is industrial strength metal design. It comes with a really beefy ceiling mount plate that's been pre-drilled. It also has an eye for the lanyard to clip into. And then it comes with a couple backing plates that you would put on the back side of it, like a ceiling tile. Also included in the box is a little conduit adapter if you're going to be running cable through a conduit to the unit itself. In the accessory box, you get a little screwdriver and the weatherproofing grommets that can be tightened down with the included wrench. On the mounting plate, it's really cool. I'll put a little screen capture up. It's got a diagram of all the different hole mounting patterns and which one might be applicable to you. It's a really cool feature, and it's really nicely executed on this plate. So let's go ahead and take the included screwdriver and get into the unit and see what it looks like inside. So you can see there's 4 screws here on the outside of the unit that hold it together. And then the top just pops off and is held with the included lanyard. You can see right away there are some contact pins that go to the IR emitters that are on actually the outside of the unit. So that's how it makes contact with them. And right off the bat, you can see the 4 cameras and how they are mounted on this chassis and kind of can rotate around however you want to aim them. You can also see the cavities here where you can put the included desiccant packs so that you don't get any fogging of the unit. There's also a little reset button. Over on the side here, you can see where you would bring the cable in, put that weatherproofing grommet in there and cinch it down. It's also got a little retaining clip, and then it's got an RJ45 connector for your gigabit Ethernet. And this unit requires PoE++ to power it. You'll also notice an M.2 door, which I think is unique to this device. I haven't seen it on another camera, where you can put an M.2 NVMe drive. Obviously, they got 4 cameras here, so storage and storage speed is going to be kind of important. The device also has 2 standard micro SD slots for edge recording as well. You can also see how easy it is to move the cameras around. They rotate around that center mount, and they also will tilt up and down if you want to tilt them up and down. And on the cover, you can see the copper contacts for the IR emitters. And on the center of the cover and on the device itself, you'll see there's a little window there for a little sensor or a light. I believe it's a sensor, but it may be a light as well. We'll see once we get it up and running. Also included in the pack is a bunch of little mounting hardware, an Allen wrench, the wrench for tightening down the grommets, and those desiccant packs I talked about before. One thing I will mention is there isn't a regular Phillips head screwdriver in the kit, so you will need a regular Phillips head screwdriver if you want to get to the NVMe storage. But that's as simple as undoing 2 screws, and then there's a traditional M.2 drive receptacle inside the unit itself. You see on the back side of the unit there's a lanyard that either goes to the ceiling mount or the optional wall/pole mount, and there's also the hole that you'll pass the Cat6 cable through. It's a really neat piece of design on that back plate. There's actually a little pin that pops through and clips into this little clip. I had Daniel pull the clip out just to kind of show you, but the pin pops over that and clips into there, and so it locks it down. It's a pretty neat little design. When you rotate it, it just kind of pops over the little piece of plastic and into there, and it's locked in. Really cool, really nice piece of industrial design. Really, to me, this device reminds me more of the AI PTZ and AI PTZ Precision, where it's just really, really well made, really well thought out. And you feel like once it's up there, it's going to stay on a light pole for a long, long time and just do what it's supposed to do. So with that, let's jump over to the optional wall mount. We're going to be putting this on a light post in front of our building, so we needed the wall mount with the pole mounting kit. It's all included in the same box. Also included in the box, but I think a lot of people are going to be very happy to hear, is a corner mount for this wall mount. I think that's going to be a really popular use case for this camera. I think pole mounts and corner mounts are probably where this is going to fit in the best. The wall mount itself reminds me very much of the industrial PTZ cameras. It's got that cover and then this plate that kind of slides out of the mount itself. You mount that plate to the wall, and then everything slides into that. Just like the PTZ, it comes with lanyards for everything, so when you're working over your head, you don't have to worry about things falling. That includes the cover, the camera, and the mount itself. It also has both top and bottom conduit access if you're going to be running a conduit to the device. In the accessory kit, you get a bunch of mounting accessories, including the pole mount and the hose clamp to mount the pole mount to a pole. You also get various screws and connectors there and an Allen key to fasten everything together. The arm mount kit is an extra $199. It's really well built, and it does have that corner and pole mount accessories. So I would probably plan for most people that you are going to need this unit. Unless you're mounting this indoors, I think you're probably going to want that arm mount. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Daniel. He's going to go ahead and get this mounted on a light pole in our parking lot, and then we'll come back and get it adopted and adjust the cameras.
We're just going to use a pole mount here. It's just a normal pole mount. Once we run these two wire bands through there, this will just sit against the pole here. And then these will screw in like that. And then we'll slide, there's a bigger piece that will slide in on top of this, and then this camera will actually mount right here. So let's go ahead and get this mounted up, and then we'll do the rest after that. Gonna go ahead and just mount this to the pole right here. I think we're gonna angle it like right around here, facing towards that the parking lot. So this is pretty, just these simple metal straps, pole mounts, and that should be plenty to hold it up. Oh, guest appearance from Sean. I love mounting stuff to the pole a lot better than to anything else. Mounting to a pole is this is so easy. Just yeah, just to mount these up is so much better. All right, we're gonna mount this up. We've got our the pole mount mounted to the pole now. So this is just gonna sit here like this. This will clip on to our actual camera, our other mount. And then our cable will probably run down through here. That happens all the time. This is where you get to use your little Allen wrench that they supplied, but we're just gonna tighten this main frame. We could actually run our cable up through here too if we wanted, I'm pretty sure. All right, let's mount the camera up. You have to take this top part off to be able to get the cable in. On the brain.
Yeah, 6 mil.
Yeah, and then here's where your Ethernet goes. Let's grab a cable.
Okay.
The cable's gonna come in through here, and then your PoE is in over here.
Yeah, it's not a very good pry tool.
So then that clamps down in there like that, and then this comes down on top of it like that. And then everybody's always like, what is this wrench for? You actually have to use this to get it to seat all the way down. So I'm doing a bad job, but there you go. It's seated all the way down.
I got it off right here. How many DPC techs does it take? Oh my gosh. I gotta take it off.
All right, screw it back down. So let's go ahead and mount it up. Clip it on there. Feed this. Right here, this will lock in right there, just like I was showing in the other video. So sits in like that, and then it sits flush, and then twist it. So we've got it mounted up now. We are going to run our cable through the top here, and I think there's another piece that I'm going to put right here that allows us to run our cable, and then it's going to patch in to our switch here. And I do believe you need PoE++ for this, which is what we have here. So really excited to see how this comes together. So this clamps on to this.
That's what it was. The same thing happened last time.
Yeah. So there you go. Patch it in, and we're live. Let's call Clay. All right, so I don't.
Yeah, that looks great, man.
I don't know which one I'm messing with here, but
Take that one up just a little bit more. Perfect.
and this one down.
Perfect. Perfect.
Okay, just like that.
That is killer, man. I mean, people can't steal your shit anymore for sure. Like, you got 360 on everybody.
Oh yeah, nobody's getting this.
All right, thanks Daniel for getting that installed. And let's jump over to store.ui.com and take a look at the AI Multisensor 4. So it's an all-weather PoE++ 32 megapixel multi-sensor camera featuring a multi-tops AI engine, 2.33 times optical zoom, 360-degree IR coverage, and 4 independently adjustable lenses for seamless wide area and close-up monitoring. It also comes in black and white, and it is $1,799. You can see here that SSD card support is coming soon. I did not test it with any edge recording, either the SSD card or the M.2 NVMe drive. So we'll have to see about that in the future. And you can see here the accessory is the arm mount kit, a versatile mounting kit enabling flat or angled installation of the AI Multisensor 4 cameras via arm, pole, or corner mounts, ideal for various deployment environments. And that comes also in black and white. Now let's go to compare this. I've got this already set up in another tab where I'm comparing the AI Multisensor 4, the G6 Pro 360, the G6 Turret, and the G6 Pro Turret. And I think these are the cameras that probably make the most sense as comparisons. The G6 Pro 360 is an awesome 360 camera. I've done a review of that against the AI 360, and you can check out that video. I'll put a link on the screen or down below. Also, the G6 Turret and the G6 Pro Turret, if I was going to do 4 independent cameras, those are the two that I would kind of look at. Obviously, the G6 Turret at $199 is a heck of a value, and doing 4 of those comes in a lot less than the multi-sensor. The G6 Pro Turret, I've added in there if you really wanted to go with like the highest quality sensor you could get, and see what it would look like to do 4 of those. So anyways, let's do a quick comparison. First off, the AI Multisensor is a pretty big system. It's 10 inches in diameter, which for what it is actually pretty small, but in comparison to the others, it's pretty big. You can see here, compared to the G6 Pro 360, which is 5.8 inches in diameter, it's almost twice the size. The IR night vision is more than the G6 Pro 360, but it's not as much as the G6 turrets individually or the G6 Pro turret. I mean, it's just trying to cover more area, obviously. Just like the G6 Pro turret, it has optical zoom, which is nice. It comes in handy. We'll check that out when we get into the demo. It has face recognition, license plate recognition, smart detections, and all the goodies. Resolution is a whopping 32 megapixels versus the rest. Field of view here, it's giving you the field of view of each individual camera, but what's really cool about this is you get a complete 360, and actually there's a little bit of overlap between each cameras. It's really impressive, and we'll get into that when we get into the demo. It does not have any audio, either speakers or a mic, so if that's what you're looking for, this is not your camera. The weatherproofing is IP66 and tamper resistance IK10. It comes with a ceiling mount, and there's an optional pole and corner arm and pennant, as I mentioned. It does all this over one single gigabit RJ45 port. It runs at 30 frames per second. It's got those 4 8 megapixel sensors like I mentioned. But when we come down to sensor size, we come to the first major concession of this system, and it's sensor size. This is using a 1/2.8 inch 8 megapixel sensor. And that obviously whatever's in the denominator being bigger means it's a smaller sensor. You can see like in the G6 Pro Turret, we're using a 1/1.2. And in the G6 Turret, we're using a 1/1.8. So this is a much smaller sensor. And I'm assuming there's a couple reasons for this. One, to get these small enough to fit in this chassis, you can't go with that bigger sensor. The bigger sensor just takes more room, and obviously the electronics and the housing and the heat dissipation and all that stuff, it just needs to be bigger. And so to get it shrunk down enough, they went with a smaller one. And one other thing, and this is just an assumption, to have all of these cameras on one processing system and then have one connection back to the NVR, I think that they probably had to make some concessions there to make sure that there wasn't too much data, and that it was going to perform well. So anyways, it is a 1/2.8 inch sensor, and we'll see how that performs at both day and night compared to the other cameras. Like I mentioned, it's got that nice lens for zooming. It's got 16 built-in IR LEDs with adaptive control. The adaptive control means that it adjusts for each region, and you have some control over that. Its maximum power consumption is 34.6 watts, so it is pulling quite a bit of power, and it is PoE++, so you're going to need either a PoE++ injector or a PoE++ capable switch. It's got a dual-core ARM Cortex A76 based chip, which is different than the quad-core A53s that are in the other cameras. Like I mentioned before, its aluminum polycarbonate construction is built like a tank. It is really, really well done. And the mount material is powder-coated aluminum alloy. It is very, very strong. The expansion slots, as I mentioned, are 2 micro SD cards and 1 M.2 2280 SATA SSD card. And as I mentioned before, the SSD card support is coming soon. Similar temperature operating range to the rest, although the low end only goes to minus 20 degrees, while the other ones go to minus 30 degrees Celsius. And with that, let's jump into the cameras here and do a quick comparison of the cameras. So I've got the 4 of them up here. This is sensor 1, sensor 2, sensor 3, sensor 4. And I will tell you, between sensor 3 and sensor 4, you'll see here on the left-hand side, this is the pole. So I'm not getting the 360-degree complete view. I would say this is probably 340 degrees. There's probably 20 degrees of viewing angle here. But you also see, if I look here, let's look at this truck here, halfway through the tire there. If I go to the other one, I've got overlap on the tire, and then we'll go over to this Dodge, and you can see I can see the Dodge, and then we'll go to this car here, and you can see that I can see the middle of the car. So there's quite a bit of overlap in each camera. And so you can see here, it's the early morning, quite a bit of traffic going by on the road here. Really nice image out of all these. I wouldn't complain about any of these images. Let's go ahead back to this one that has got a little bit of the sun flare here. This one is directly in the south facing sun. You can see a little bit of an artifact here from the dome, but this is really a pretty image, and I don't think anybody would be upset about this image. But you see, we have a really nice field of view, and I will just quickly, between the two of these here, this is the Multisensor 4, and this is the AI Pro. This is mounted just above it in the same direction, and I've got this digitally zoomed out a little bit. You can see this one is handling the sun in a little bit different. It's kind of got this milky overlay to it versus the flare that the Multisensor had. But, you know, very comparable images. I will say that if you zoom in on something, the AI Pro is just a nicer, sharper image. You can see more detail in that. I don't know how that's going to come across on YouTube, but, you know, this bigger sensor does do a little bit nicer job. But we're getting to the spot in sensor technology where there's just not that much in it in these cameras. You know, there is a difference. This is a wider field of view. This is a little bit better image. It's a little bit sharper, especially like in the distance. That being said, is it a, you know, game changer? I don't know. For a surveillance camera, I don't think it's that big of a difference. You know, if this was a, you know, digital camera that you're using and you wanted that last little bit of resolution, you're going to get more resolution out of a Pro sensor. That goes for the G6 Pro as well. I've got the G6 Pro down here, and you can see this is a really, really sharp, crisp image. And I think this image is superior. This is on the other pole, so it's not a perfect one-to-one comparison, but it is a better image. But that being said, to run 4 of these G6 Pros, I'd have to run multiple lines out there or put a box on the pole with a switch in it, and I've got to mount 4 of them as opposed to mounting 1 of them. And so the look of it on the pole is going to be nicer with the all-in-one unit versus the multi-units. I will show you here. So let's just say in this area that I wanted to get a little bit more of a zoomed in look. I can use the optical zoom here. It does take a second for that to focus in. Truth be told, and I'll put a little overlay on it. We have a lot of pollen and rain in the air right now, and my lens got pretty dirty this weekend, and it was having trouble focusing in and out. I went out there and cleaned it last night, but I'll put an overlay on it having trouble doing this close focus or changing focus basically when the lens is dirty. I reached out to Unifi and they said it's going to be adjusted in a future firmware update. So look out for that. But you can see here, it does look nice zoomed in. Obviously in my use case, zoomed in is probably not where I would be, but it does give you the ability to adjust. So sometimes, you know, you don't need as much overlap and you want a little bit more zoom. Or if this is an area where you have a expensive asset over here, I could, you know, go out there and manually move this up or down, left and right, and leave it zoomed in on something. And I do have that ability. Also, you know, I think it's going to be very popular on the corner of a building. If you are using it on the corner of a building, you may not need this super wide field of view because you're going to have more overlap, and it's going to give you the ability to use a little bit of that optical zoom to get more reach because you don't need it to be as wide. So if you're just covering 270 degrees, let's say in that instance where you have a corner of the building, you could use the zoom to get more reach. Also, you can do each of the 4 cameras individually. So let's just say in this area, I wanted to have better license plate detection, which is something I would do if I didn't already have an LPR on top of it. I could use the zoom here to zoom into this area, just focus on where I would capture license plate. And that would increase my license plate hits by quite a bit. Future Clay here, I realized I didn't go into detections and show you license plate and person detection. Person detection works just as, it's pretty easy and it works just as you would think. License plate detection tends to be more challenging, so I will show you what that looks like. So I've gone in here and I will select, I've got 2 multi-sensors running. Multi-sensor 1 is the one that is looking at the entrance to the driveway when people come into the driveway. And it's just nailing everybody. I can go in here on any one of these individual detections and show you what it looks like, but it's a pretty easy detection. Obviously it depends on lighting and that kind of stuff and speed, but in my parking lot at parking lot speeds, it's nailing every one of these. What's that? NPL 036. NPL 036, and it's nailing every one of them. This is the one looking at the driveway as it exits. This one's actually in a really, really good position, and it is nailing everybody as they go through. Again, if I zoom in on it, it's pretty easy to see here that it can grab them quite easily. And honestly, it's not much of a challenge at these speeds in this location for them to just nail it every time. You can see RIXC 19, and we got RIXC19. Then this is going down the driveway towards the rear. Not a lot of people use this area, but if they go back there, it easily grabs them. And again, with LPR, just in general, with license plates, it's very dependent on the distance from the car. It's very dependent on the amount of light. And it's also very dependent on the speed that the vehicles are traveling. But in a parking lot or on the corner of a building, which I think is where this is going to be most often installed, it's going to nail people going parking lot speeds with the correct amount of light. It's going to do a very good job with license plate detection. So don't worry about that sensor size. It's going to do a fine job for you. And if I didn't have that LPR, I would probably, in this instance, leave that zoomed in there so that I would get the best license detection possible. But I will say that focus speed right now is a little slow, and I am looking forward to a firmware update that speeds that up. So a couple things here. You can add shortcuts, which for this camera, I think is a really smart thing. So another thing to talk about is the G6 180. You can see how the G6 180 automatically stitches those 2 sensors together. And kudos to the development team for this dynamic view now, where I can use the G6 180 and create my own mount here where it spans the whole screen. I think that was a game changer update for the G6 180. And obviously that looks beautiful now. And it's really nice and easy to use in my layout here. But if I double click on it to zoom in on it, this aspect ratio is kind of clunky. But then I have to use the buttons on my keyboard to go left and right, and it's just not as usable of an image. I was complaining in the beginning that I would like that to have the option to have that as 2 separate images. Now that mount has changed it, and it's much more usable for me, but the multi-sensor does not blend images. And I think that's because it's more flexible. You're able to move those sensors around, and obviously if you move them around, the AI would have trouble kind of matching those up because you're just kind of changing the physics of where those cameras are located. Whereas on the 180, they're fixed and you can't mess with them. But one thing I would recommend doing if you are using it is adding shortcuts. So in these cameras, you can click on the little shortcut button. And if you click over here, you can add a shortcut. And I will go to sensor 4, we'll go save. And then what you can do is just go back and forth between the sensors by clicking those shortcuts. And you could add them, to all of them. Then you can just go click, click, click through those shortcuts, changing your camera view as somebody walked from one camera, say, to the next camera. And that's something I probably will do, is I'll put those shortcuts in here to I can follow that guy from that side of the pole to the other side of the pole. As you saw in Daniel's video, I can tilt these up and down, but you can completely tailor that to your particular use case. What's cool about it is each individual camera has its controls. There are some things that are global that do the whole system, but each individual camera has its focus, its overlays, You can take a snapshot and you can go into its individual settings and you can change those things the way you want to. Things that you cannot change individually is, your night vision changes all of them. Your IR filter on or off changes all of them. But you can set your zones and even your recording set options per camera. So here, I can undo license plates or add license plates, and it is not affecting the other cameras. So I'll just do animal and vehicle here, and I'll click save and apply changes. And you'll see when I go to the next camera and I go back into the same settings that this one has face and license plate and person. So that's really cool. You have this kind of granular level that you would if you had 4 independent cameras. So that's pretty neat. But for the most part, all these settings are the same as they are on every other camera. With that, let's wait till it gets dark out and we'll do a review of these sensors in the dark. All right, so we're back. It's dark now. It's about 8:30 in the evening and it is pretty doggone dark out. You might see a little glow of the city in the background, but I assure you it is dark out there. Turn off the lights in my parking lot, but as always, big disclaimer, there is always a lot of residual light in my parking lot. My parking lot itself is quite dark, but you can see across the way here, there are a lot of, there's vehicles, there's lights across the building, there's lights in these other parking lots. One other thing that I just realized now doing this test is I have the AI LPR on this pole and I cannot turn off its IR emitter. So this big, huge splash of IR in the middle of MS sensor 2 is the AI LPR and I cannot turn that off. So disclaimer, disclaimer, disclaimer. But with the lights off, I've turned off the IR emitters from everything else in the parking lot. The only emitter you're seeing here is the AI LPR. So I'll go through here. The IR emitter for the AI Multisensor is off as well. So I just wanted to give it with no IR emitter in IR mode. You can see this is the image. And this is a really nice image. If anybody's walking around here, this is going to easily detect them. I will say these latest generation of cameras do just really well in the dark, and you really can see pretty much this entire image really, really well. It does blow out a little bit directly into lights, but other than that, I mean, it's a really amazing image. This one obviously is a kind of a cheat code because we have the AI LPR's emitter in there, and this one you can kind of see the AI LPR's emitter here as well in sensor 3. But off in the distance, I mean, that's a really good image. I can see a long, long way. I'm doing a little bit of digital zoom there. So I would say this is a really decent image. That's with everything off. Nobody's ever going to run it that way. So let's go ahead and turn on the IR emitter in on the multi-sensor. And you can see just the little pop there and it turned itself on. And everything just got just a little bit brighter. Obviously, the more light you get in the scene, the better it is going to look. And we'll go around the horn here and look at each one of these. Again, nice. You can see now there's a reflection from the IR emitter that this is pointing out that you'll see in these other little bits that you didn't see before in the back of these license plates here. You'll see are shining up a little bit. That's reflecting from this IR emitter. You got somebody walking to their car over there. That's a long way away, but I got a pretty good idea what's going on there. And obviously, again, this one's got a little bit of cheat code because it's got the LPR. And back to the first one again. Really nice image. Let's do this. I'm going to do 2 things here. I'm going to force the cameras into, I'm going to go custom here, and I'm going to turn the IR off. Now they're all just getting color. You can see here, it's hard for that sensor to do this at night. Everything's got a little bit of this cast, a little bit of this overlay on it. It looks kind of like you got the red, green, blue, kind of a little bit out of sync. But let's do this while we have it in that mode, because I think this is the way most people will probably run this. I'm going to go in here into my app, if I can bring it up. So now we're cooking. This is something that you might use. And honestly, I might leave mine in this mode most of the time. Reason being is now I'm really, I mean, this looks like a real daylight image here. I can read license plates. I can see everything that's going on here. And with the way my light pole works, I don't necessarily need to see way off into the distance, but I want to see what's on my property here. And this looks really good. I think you'd be really happy with this image. And honestly, this is the way I probably would run the image. Now, it loses a little detail further away, and obviously this is a little bit smaller sensor than the bigger sensors. And let's go here and we'll look at AI Pro versus the multi-sensor here. Go to multi-sensor 4. Good image. I can see everything I need here. I can zoom in on these bushes. They look really good. I can zoom in on the car charger and really see everything there. But when I go to the AI Pro, you just go, wow, it's just that next level, because this is a bigger sensor. The bigger sensors do better at night. And where you really see the differences off in the distance here, the fall off is just so much further, right? So look at that detail, and there's just nothing here versus these Pro sensors. I can see the grassy knoll back here. I can see the water back there really well. If I pan a little bit to the left here with this, I'm getting all these details here over here that I'm just not getting with the multi-sensor image. I'm getting a little bit of it, but not as much. That's where you're going to, the form factor difference, you're going to get a little less of that. But that being said, what I'm trying to do here, and what I think most people are trying to do, this is a great image. I mean, I don't think anybody's going to be upset about that. The only concession you're making is that it would look better with that bigger sensor. I'm going to go over to the other side of the parking lot here, and we'll look at the G5 Pro turret. Same thing with the Pro. You just get more in those middle areas. It's just resolving more where there isn't light. It just does a better job. It's just a bigger sensor, more light hits the sensor, more photons, means you just have more data. But that looks really good. I wouldn't complain about that at all. And honestly, where I would leave this, and where I do leave this, is right here. Let's go back and we'll put this onto auto, and we'll leave the RO filter and LED, and you're going to see that it's just happy there. And that's where it stays most of the time. So that being said, and I've said it a few times here, I really feel like this is the ideal light pole camera, and you're going to have light off of a light pole. So I feel like this is probably the mode most people will use it in. I don't think you're giving up much to go with the smaller sensor, and having it in one compact chassis, in the one cable to it. I think this is where it shines. Where I do think it's going to struggle in a truly dark area is comparing it against like 4 AI Pro bullets or 4 G6 Pro bullets. If it's truly dark, those bigger sensors are going to do better. That being said, in my use case, which I think is going to be typical of most use cases, I think this is a really good image, and I think that you would be more than happy to have this image. I think anybody that comes in range of this camera in this light pole is going to get detected. I'm going to be able to identify them. I'm going to be able to surveil them and see what they're doing. And I'm going to be able to see it for enough distance that I would be able to track them going off into the distance. So at that, let's wrap this up. We'll talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, and I'll talk about who this camera is for and who should skip this camera. All right, we're back. So let's get into the good, the bad, the ugly, and who this is for. So let's start off with the good. The good is the all-in-one unit, the design of this. If you use the AI PTZ Industrial or Precision, it's that same build quality. This is a camera that you feel like will be up on the wall and be there for a long, long time. My original AI PTZ has been on the wall now for, I think, 5 or 6 years. Still running great, still just, a truck. And I think the system is very similar to that. It's really, really well built. It's really robust. 2, I think it's a really neat design. I like the design of the chassis. I like the way that the cameras move around in it. It's really well thought out and really well done. It reminds me of the Axis Multisensor. I don't do a ton of Axis stuff, and I've never done an Axis review, but I have seen the Axis Multisensor, and this is a very similar camera system to that Axis Multisensor. Pricing very similar to that system as well. 3 is ease of installation. Only running one cable, the ease of this chassis mounting. Once you've done 1 or 2 of these, they're really easy to install, really easy to maintain. There's one unit there to deal with. And I think that that along with the aesthetics of that single chassis looks really nice, and I think it's a definite advantage of the system. Also, an honorable mention here is including that angle mount in the wall mount adapter. It's nice. I have a feeling a lot of people are going to use that angle mount on the corner of a building. So kudos, a really well built mount system, and I like that a lot. The bad for me is going to be the smaller sensor size. And it's kind of a balancing game you have to do with the engineering of a device like this. They couldn't make it super big. They need to deal with heat dissipation and, durability and having one Cat6 connection to it. Power, heat, all those things come into the industrial design of a system like this. And I think they've met a really nice balance. I mentioned that Axis multisensor. It looks very similar to other multisensors, and it functions very similar to the other multisensors, same kind of range of operation range, same kind of megapixels and kind of optical look. So I think you're dealing with some constraints there. But if I was a homeowner, I could easily do 4 G6 turrets for $800, buy a Flex 2.5 PoE and a Flex Utility Pro box. It'd probably come in, at $600, $700, $800 less than this system, and have similar quality. I also could go to a G6 Pro turret, or an AI Pro turret for that matter, and have superior results. Now my installation is not going to look as good, and I've got more to manage there, but I probably could get superior results for a similar price. So does the form factor, the looks, and the ease of installation outweigh that superior system, maybe at a lower cost? And the ugly for me, and thankfully it's going to get fixed in a firmware release, is the close focus is struggling for me when my lens gets dirty or the outer covering gets dirty. So that's something they need to work on, and I've been promised by them that it is going to get fixed in an upcoming firmware release. So that leaves us with, who is this for? I think this is a no-brainer install for anybody that has a huge parking lot. If you're a commercial installer and you're putting these in an apartment complex parking lot or a Walmart parking lot, these are a no-brainer. They get incredible reach. They're super easy to install. They're super easy to adjust. They look really good as standalone. And the ease of management and installation is going to save you the cost of mounting multiple cameras. So I think it's a no-brainer there. Also, I didn't test this indoors because I don't have a place that can utilize this throw, but I can see in a spot like we're in a warehouse or a big library or a gymnasium or somewhere, one of these in the ceiling would be amazing. And its ability to have zoom in particular regions. So if you had a piece of equipment or a counter or somewhere that you wanted to have a little bit closer reach on, this optical zoom is really nice. For most people, especially residentials or small businesses where, the room is, let's say, less than 3,000 or 4,000 square feet, I think the G6 Pro 360 is still the camera for you. It's harder to manage it because you don't get the multiple screens, but it does a great job. But if you're just going back to footage, it's really versatile and easy to manage that system. But I do think for big commercial spaces indoors, this camera would have a space. I just don't have a space that's big enough to test it. So in conclusion, I think like the AI PTZ Industrial and the AI PTZ Precision, this is a commercial grade unit. This is for, Costco to put in their parking lot or a big warehouse to put way up in the rafters. I don't think this is going to be the best fit for most individual users. If you did have a big house and you wanted to put one on a corner and get a bunch of throw, or if you have a barn or a big piece of property where you need to see a long way, I can see it residentially in those kind of areas. But for the most part, I do think this is going to be more of a commercial product. If you have a light pole and you're looking for 360-degree coverage, I highly recommend this. It's a really nice unit, and I think you're going to be served well by using it. If you try to put 4 or 5 of these in a big parking lot, I think you're going to be very happy with the results that you get. So anyways, if you have any questions or comments or anything I missed, we'll have those conversations down in the comments below. As always, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next video.